Too often we think about content creators as just content creators, but the fact is most content creators are also business owners. So in this video, I want to take that businessy lens and apply it to the world of content creation, because in business, if there's something that you're doing, odds are there are benefits to writing down how exactly you do it. When we're talking about this conversation of writing down how we do things, most often we're talking about the world of SOPs, or standard operating procedures. This is just a fancy word for a recipe for how you do something. And if you're still kind of stuck on what that term means, we do have a video for you up there. But rather than focusing on the big picture of what is a process and all that kind of stuff, today I want to give you some specific examples of SOPs that a content creator might want to use. So this would be for someone like a YouTuber, a blogger, a podcaster, somewhere where creating things is what you do either as a part of your business or as your business. I'm going to be going through 4 different SOPs that I would definitely recommend you get down if you are a content creator. Now, just to dive right in, the first SOP I would recommend for content creators who are looking to start documenting what they do is how exactly you proof something. So this might be proofreading your blog post. This could be proof watching your YouTube videos. What are you looking for before you click publish or before you schedule a piece of work? Are there common mistakes you know you make? Are there certain tone things you want to make sure you're incorporating? Do you have rules about affiliate links you want to make sure is documented? Is it important to you to have certain call to actions in every video, like,
hey, go subscribe and like,
for example? Whatever that criteria is for you, I would put that in an SOP called how to proofread, proof watch, whatever you want to call it, for your area, and save that as one of your first SOPs. Especially if you are publishing something that you cannot later edit, like a YouTube video, this is an area where you really want to get it down. So by writing this down and giving yourself, even if it's just you, a process to go through and to check for every time, you can reduce the risk of potentially publishing something that's sloppier than what you'd like. If you don't have any infrastructure for where to write your SOPs, do not worry about that right now. Just open up a notepad or a Word doc or a Google Doc or your Notion, whatever you're using, and write down how you start proof watching, whatever that looks like for you. Is it, putting on headphones? Is it sitting in your office? How do you have to start? And finally, how do you end this proofing process? How do you know when it's done? How do you mark that it's done? And how do you remind yourself that, yes, I did proof watch this? That's your start. That's your stop. And what are the key steps? What are the key things that you're looking for when you go through that article, that blog post, that ebook, whatever it is? This is SOP number 1 for content creators, how to proof. Now, the next SOP I'm going to suggest is probably not going to be much of a surprise to you guys, and that is how to schedule. So once you have your content proofed, whether it's proof watched, proofread, whatever, you need to put that wherever you publish your content. And unlike the first SOP, the reason to document this one is a little bit different. For the first one, we wanted to make sure we created an SOP because there was a lot of risk. There was a lot of danger if we didn't get it right. So we wanted to document it for that reason. For this second process, this second step, there's not as much risk, but scheduling your content can be so tiring and so time consuming that this is actually a really good area to delegate, to get help, and to start working with somebody else. But regardless of our reason, when it comes to this second SOP, you want to start things off by having a proofed piece of content, something you are ready to schedule. Then you want to finish this process with a piece being scheduled, whatever that means to you. Does that mean end screens are added, playlists are added? What is scheduled in your world? Write those 2 things down as the start and the stop. Then, naturally, your steps in between are what you're going to want to document next. And when I'm saying document, don't get overwhelmed here. I'm talking, 3 to 10 words for each step of what you need to do to schedule a piece of content. All right, 3 to 10 words per header, like a BuzzFeed article, okay? It should not take very long. You will go back and edit it later, but for now, just get it out of your head. Just like with all the SOPs here, we don't want to get too granular on our first pass. We just want to write the high-level steps. And when you're scheduling your next post, or when you're having your VA schedule your next post, have them add a little bit more detail, or have yourself add a little bit more detail each time. So maybe you start with 5 words per step, then you add another sentence to each one. And then maybe you add a screenshot. But you progressively add little bits by little bits to make sure nothing is missed until you have a finished SOP for how to schedule, which is a great task. If I can't say this enough, this is a great task to get your team, maybe a virtual assistant, maybe an agency you can hire to help you manage this important step of the process. That's SOP number 2, scheduling. The third SOP for content creators may be a little specific to YouTube, but I think it applies across platforms. And this is about making sure you have a post-publish review process. What I'm talking about here is once something goes live, right? Maybe you schedule it for 2 weeks from now. And when that time comes, that video goes live, or that blog post gets published, or that social media post goes out, what do you do in that moment in real time? Are you in there responding to comments as soon as the video goes live? Are you putting a pinned comment on the video? Are you adding that story to your highlights? What are your steps as soon as something goes live to engage with your audience and get that content all the places it needs to be? Whether your policy is sharing or liking or responding or replying or engaging or whatever else, make sure you have this SOP written down, because while this isn't a super complex process, this is again a good process to delegate and also a common process where things are missed. Just to be abundantly clear, this SOP would start when a piece of content goes live, and it would end when you consider all of your initial prep done. The key steps involved are going to vary, but it might include creating a pinned comment, adding things to your story, adding things to highlights, making sure the links work. That's a good one as well. And maybe you also want to respond to every comment that comes in, something like that, and then you're done. This should only take you about 10 minutes to write up a quick SOP of the key steps, so that way you never have to forget or never have to just wing it. I just gave you a really easy process to write down, and I want to wrap us up here with a not so easy one. So if you have mastered those first 3 of your proofing process, your scheduling process, and your post-publish review, you want to start thinking about repurposing. Now, it does not matter at this point whether you start repurposing when something's created or you start repurposing after something's published. Whichever is correct for you is where you want to start this process. And you want to end this process when your repurposing flow is done, which I know is kind of a nebulous thing, so I'll give you some specific examples here. If you start your process when your YouTube video is getting scheduled, your next key steps might be to schedule 5 social media posts about that video, to write 1 newsletter about that video, to update other videos and screens to make sure they're pointing to that new video. Or maybe even schedule an event inside your Facebook group to remind people that, hey, we've got a new video coming out on this date and time. Odds are you're already repurposing your original content in at least one way. And if so, write down that one step and then finish it off, right? A 1-step SOP is better than nothing. If you are repurposing, write it down. If you're not repurposing, feel free to skip this one, but you probably want to start getting into that world. The other thing I'll say about this SOP is that this SOP is going to evolve. So you want to make sure you're writing down the current repurposing steps that you might have. And then every time you're thinking,
how can I make my content reach further?
Go back to this SOP and add an additional step. Such a great way to get more out of each piece of content. You know, maybe you're watching Vanessa Lau on YouTube and you're thinking, oh man, I want to do like they're doing. And they have this great tip about repurposing your content into an Instagram scrolling carousel. Great. If you want to incorporate that into your strategy, all you have to do is go to that SOP that you're starting right now and add a step. Add step 2. Add step 4, add step 5. I will say that's what we've done over our journey. Our original repurposing was almost non-existent, but then we added little by little more onto it to ensure that our videos are getting more and more reach. If you want a detailed walkthrough of my own repurposing flow, kind of flow charted out, you can see that up here too if that helps you. But that may not be where you're at right now, and that is a-okay. The most important thing is that you write down where you're at today. Again, give yourself like 10, 15 minutes. Shouldn't take terribly long. Just write 3 to 10 words per step and write it into a Word doc, Google Doc, ClickUp, whatever you use, and get it out of your head. You can always add to it later. And I think that's the best takeaway to have for this whole SOP conversation. What we're talking about here is a prompt. You want to write a few notes, an outline even of an SOP, and every time you do that process, or every time you train someone, or every time that person does a process, add a little bit more. And by the time you do that 6 times, you're going to end up having this very specific instruction guide that you could hand to just about any virtual assistant or content creator or employee and say,
hey, do this.
And they'll be able to follow it because you've added details little by little. As a content creator, you have thousands of decisions you need to make every week. Do not let these kinds of routines drain your energy when you want to focus all of your creative power onto this, the actual content creation, not how I'm going to upload things. That's not a good use of your energy. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video right here. I hope this has opened up the world of SOPs and given you some real world examples for a content creator that will help you get this started. And if you'd like to learn more about being more efficient by documenting your process, these videos here, I would highly recommend giving them a watch because they will help you figure out where to go from here. Thanks so much for watching, and until next time, enjoy the process.